There is an esoteric saying which is, as above, so below. We observe the concept as above as the sky, and the earth as below. It's an interesting concept in the 21st century and the New Age, when we observe some amazing new discoveries throughout the universe and as we're paying attention to the earth. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this show From the Sky to Earth. My name is Agneta Borstein. I'm an astrologer, and today we're going to talk about the planet Jupiter. And the title of the show is Jupiter's Journey. So the Jupiter is one of the largest planet in the universe as we know it now, before more discoveries. And basically we could fit the Earth 1,000 times within that planet. Earth can go into that planet Jupiter 1,000 times, so it's huge. Jupiter travels around the ecliptic. It takes about a year, so it's quite fast in our way of looking at astrology. Jupiter is supposedly very active. There is a red spot that continuously having its eye of Jupiter. So there's a lot with that when we look at astrology. We do look at myth. In general, all the planets has its original myth in astrology from ancient times. So Jupiter, he was actually the son of Saturn, which in astrology is not a very well-liked planet, but we have to deal with him. Saturn was the king of the sky or the world in the mythological parable. And so he comes with a strong force, and we should also be reminded that Saturn and Jupiter, before we discovered new planets, were the last planets in our solar system as we knew it then. So Jupiter became strong. He would rule thunder. He comes always with a thunder holding onto the staff of the thunder, and also an eagle. So he has a lot of power in his way of looking at what he manifests from the earth to the sky. So the power of Jupiter in the way of looking at it, he was looking at his father. Saturn actually, in the myth, swallowed his own children, which is very devastating. We still hear that today, but the myth goes on about how he kind of devoured because he had heard the seers telling him that his children is going to defeat him. So his children, both Neptune, Pluto, Juno, and Vesta, got into this gruesome, we will show a picture, and it actually is, the myth becomes so real when we study it, because Rhea, Saturn's wife, when she got pregnant again, took her son Jupiter and escaped to the cave that we still can actually find in Crete, in Greece. So she was hiding her son Jupiter from Saturn. And he grew up very secluded, but he heard the stories about how Saturn then could eventually have, taken over his position as maybe being the ruler one day. So eventually, he took back his power by a war, and he came back to actually winning the war for the purpose of regaining the power. So the war went on, and actually Jupiter's son came to be the winner. And Saturn has then stepped back. He's still a strong individual in the mythological part, to see how when Jupiter won, Jupiter is then known to be the god of the heavens. And he assigned his brother Neptune to become the god of the waters, and that's still so. And also the Pluto was born as the underworld, and Neptune will become the ocean. And that's still so in our study of astrology. So we have old myths incorporated into the language of astrology. We see the ecliptic being, with all the 12 zodiac signs, they are divided into 30 division into the 360 degrees as the ecliptic are divided into. And when we find that Jupiter then becomes kind of like, do we take Jupiter or Saturn and how they are integrated? So Jupiter is actually quite favorite in the world of astrology, but we also have to be careful because each coin has two sides. Each planet has two sides. So the keywords for the growth of the benefit of Jupiter is like he is a little good luck charm. He belongs to the zodiac sign Sagittarius, which of course is a positive, growing sign in the 12 zodiac signs. So Jupiter and Sagittarius belongs together. Jupiter typically do too much because he physiologically is the largest planet. So he rules matters as in expansion. He overspends and he becomes like a trickster with that side that we don't know for some all the time. Do we have the positive side or the negative side? We always have the two sides to be cautious about who we have to kind of judge. And do we have good luck? Of course. There is an expansion with our largest planet. And it also rules religions and the law in the way of that we grow and understand the evolutionary part of humanity. So the overindulgence, it also can become to be fanatic, which is kind of overdoing in excess of the individual planet. Now, if you do know your chart, you might know where you have your planet Jupiter in your chart. If you don't, you can go under any type of web page, especially one that I recommend is astrolabe.com, astrolabe.com. And you can take your birth information and see, because as I mentioned earlier, Jupiter moves quite quickly. We study fast-moving planet, outer planet, so Jupiter is an interpersonal planet. So he stays in one sign just a little bit more than a year. And so if you want to look up your sign where Jupiter is at, it might help you to listen and understand this program about Jupiter, the growth planet. So if we take that into consideration, we find that if you had Jupiter, as it recently entered Virgo, we're going to go through all the sun sign, the Pisces and so forth. Of course, we always start with Aries, but at the moment, Jupiter entered into Virgo in August 11th in 2015 and will stay there for a year. So anybody who has Virgo or Pisces might benefit from the beneficial part of Jupiter, versus if there was a challenge, it might be overspending, overeating, overdoing, and be a little bit lazy. But that's okay, because Jupiter in Virgo is not really that happy, because Virgo in itself would kind of constrict his ability to grow and overspend. Jupiter likes to be more cautious, is an earth sign. So when we start going up to the sign, the first sign of the zodiac is Aries. So we go back for 12 years, and it is almost impossible to say you have your Jupiter in so-and-so sign, but if you had Jupiter in Virgo, you might notice 12 years ago was some incident that happened that would be positive for personal growth. And of course, we also look at the benefit of mundane astrology, which is when we look at the world at large. So we go into, if you have the Jupiter in Aries, you might have this personality of always start project and perhaps not finish them very well or very fast, or you have a lot of different projects. But Jupiter in Aries can also be brave and have that capacity when Jupiter realizes that there is that I continue and I will be very forceful in my approach to have Jupiter in Aries. Now Jupiter in Taurus would also be an earth sign. And Jupiter in Taurus can be that indulgent in the gourmet department. Too much chocolate. Chocolate is supposed to be good for us, but we also have maybe too much of that gourmet stuff, and overeating and overindulgent should Jupiter be in the sign of Taurus in your birth chart. If we look at Gemini and Jupiter in Gemini, then we have a different connotation, because Gemini shifts and it's fun, it can talk, it can be a public person that has a way of adjusting to this beneficial part of Jupiter, being able to adjust, be able to have fun and socialize and doing all these trickster things that Jupiter is pretty good at anyway. And Jupiter then will find its home, if you will, to be able to grow, but also being aware that, I can change. And, with the shift, because Jupiter belongs to Sagittarius, then it could be that Jupiter and Gemini does do very well together, even though the overdoing, then it gets scattered and too much of everything or something. Now, Jupiter in Cancer has a different ways of looking at, it doesn't grow very well in Cancer. Cancer, the crab, kind of isolates itself and insulates its feelings at times. But it's also very kind, and it learns the process about how to integrate knowledge and how to grow into the different ways. For example, Jupiter and Sagittarius does very well in the studies. Cancer sits home and does the work very diligently and proper, if you will. Now, Jupiter in Leo, the fire sign Leo that always wants to have attention, they fit very well together, because Leo likes to shine, it likes to grow, it likes to be expansive and follow through in what it needs to be done, and kind of go into that. So Jupiter in Leo would be kind of beneficial, and when it's overdone, Leo just burned down because of doing too much anyway. So again, now the next zodiac sign, have you just come in to watch this show From the Sky to Earth. This is a chart. This is a program about charts and astrology. So we are looking at Jupiter's journey throughout all the different zodiac signs. So as we mentioned earlier, Jupiter went into Virgo in the now, as we speak, in August in the fall of 2015, and will stay there until October of 2016. So we can go through there a little bit more about who specifically. For example, if you were born early in the sign of Virgo, as in August 23rd through September, then September 20th, then you might be more affected or had been affected in August, September, October of 2015. Now we are midterm, so you who are born September 3rd through September 12th might have this energy of Jupiter very strong at this time. And then it goes what we call retrograded. So in the beginning of the year of 2016, there will be that motion again about where am I going? I thought I would get that house, I never got it, and I thought I was going to meet that boy or girl, and I never did. So you still have to be a little patient with this energetic part of Jupiter. So then when we get into the other part of, for example, springtime of 2016, those Virgos who are born September 13th through September 22nd would benefit more to be patient now and wait for the right time. For Jupiter is, after all, a good-like planet. Now, if we find Jupiter in your birth chart in Libra, you have a way of finding a ways out and be kind of very proper and polite to deliver your message, and always find ways out, and there is a lot of potential for the arts for that purpose. When we find Jupiter in Scorpio, we have that again as a water sign in Scorpio, and I always admire Scorpio, even though I think in general it's not a very well-liked sign, but it's very committed. So Jupiter together with Scorpio allows you to grow into the possibility of commitment as you are in your true personality. And so Jupiter in Sagittarius comes again because they belong together. Jupiter is home in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius and Jupiter does well to perhaps be teachers and really thrive on that, and also enjoying the travel, because Jupiter is that expansive looking at things and finding different ways out to be part of society in a public way, communication, lecturing, like I said, and teaching, and even, buying into that you like to show off and you like to be out in public. Another earth sign, the next one, is Capricorn. So if you find Jupiter in Capricorn, you have also quite a bit of the ability to find your ways into patience and finding your way to allow Jupiter to be the beneficial planet and not overspending. Capricorn always gets to the point eventually, and Jupiter does too in the two sides of it. If we are honest to the zodiac sign, then Jupiter in Capricorn does very well together. Now, Jupiter in Aquarius has a more way of finding ways, new ways. There is new discoveries. A person who might be a lawyer would be very good for new vision for humanity and finding ways out to perhaps to solve problems caused by injustice in the society or in family situations. The opposite Virgo is Pisces. So the Pisces and Jupiter goes together as very well fitted because it likes to be growth, it likes to search, it likes to understand things because it's the consciousness of personal growth, always looking into more things, the books, the libraries, and allowing us to further educating ourselves into where we need to be. With the positive way that we do use astrology, even though we find the whole part of negative and positive, the yin and the yang, the male and the female, we always find a balance throughout looking at the charts in itself. Now, we might look at a chart that, I just want to share it kind of quick. On August 11, 2015, the Jupiter, as I had mentioned, went into Virgo, and that's where it's not really so happy to be. So we're also looking at other planetary pictures, of course, but we also see that at that time, in the summer of 2015, there was other shifts that we still kind of wait to move forward. We want to move on. So the Virgo, Pisces, Gemini and Sagittarius might be the planet at the current time, that zodiac sign that at the current time would try to just be a little more patient and wait it out to springtime of 2016 and allow that to grow into our next chart, which then would be September in 2016. So in the meantime, when Jupiter then goes into Libra, if you have just joined me, then we had said earlier that Jupiter Libra are more beneficial together because now we're looking at this personal growth of individuality to allow the personal growth being in Libra. And then again, if you have that in your natal chart, which you can look up on the internet, you can look under certain sites. There's one, astrolabe.com, that you can look up to see where your natal planet is at for the Jupiter that we're talking about tonight. And so the Jupiter in Libra, we all have that hope that it will be better time. And in other episodes, we have talked about a very strong planetary configuration that occurred 7 times. Jupiter was not involved, but 2 other very strong planets caused this culmination of migration and all these things that is not to be talked about today. But we also find a hope with Jupiter, finding the way of looking at a different kind of way of looking at when we find a chart as Jupiter and me are in a very beneficial part in my personal chart. We're not going to talk about my personal chart, but I would advise you to look into Jupiter as always not trusting it, because when students start to study astrology, they go, Jupiter, yay! But I always kind of say, be cautious with Jupiter. So now when we go back into the other chart that we looked at from August 2015, we would just like to remind, as this goes for for the whole year, if you will, then they will affect you in an individual way. And we might look at 12 years ago as a tool that we use astrology, because when we start a chart, we have the natal chart, we have a progress chart that is like your subconscious, and then we have the now. So we actually use a three-dimensional art. We call astrology study art of astrology. So if Jupiter was beneficial in your natal chart, this is a very beneficial year for Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Sagittarius to take into consideration. Maybe you wanted to study and never got ready to really commit yourself. Then January or even springtime of 2016 is very beneficial to use Jupiter. As I was saying, Jupiter is a beneficial planet, but we also have to be cautious to take that time to grow into its understanding, so we don't shift into overeating, overspending, overdoing things that might be beneficial of patience. And then Jupiter is that beneficial part of our lives that we do deserve, of course. But when we go too fast, Jupiter is very happy because he tricks us into perhaps sometimes doing things just a little too fast. Now, just to mention, if you are the Pisces, then you might want to look in if you're born early in we divide a 30 degrees into 3 different sectors. And if you're born February 19th through February 29th, Jupiter is also in effect into your chart as a transit, which is a change. And then you can benefit later on in the springtime, especially those who are born March 1st through March 10th. And then you have that into consideration that next time it turns around for the beneficial part of Pisces would be March 11th through March 19th. And so we take that into consideration, that we take the symbol from the ancient time. For example, in the Vedic astrology, before we discover our beautiful universe that we're still discovering, amazing part, then we take all the zodiac signs into consideration, and Jupiter and Saturn would be like the last planets that we work with. Therefore, Jupiter is very important to study and have faith and trust that Saturn, his father, actually teaches him to not be controlled and continue the growth in personal avenues through life. And when we find that in the process, as we mentioned earlier, we're still discovering planets 1781 and 1840 and 1930, and now we find so many new ways of looking at astrology and allow ourselves to have this personal growth and believing in not just the benefit of astrology, but bringing that information as above, so below, and bringing this into practical application from the sky to earth, and allowing Jupiter to be that good planet that he planned to be, because he did win the battle over Saturn. So he's also very beneficial to have the faith. He rules faith, priesthood, and all those things that if we really take that into consideration, then we adore Jupiter if we don't overeat, overdo, or overspend. So it's been kind of like Jupiter saying, yes, I can do it, and yes, I like to grow, I like to study, and he is very beneficial to take a look at in the way if we look at astrology. Therefore, it's my pleasure to share my knowledge from the point of astrological concept. I do thank you, and I thank Nutmeg Television for allowing us to bring these programs out to the public. Thank you.